Dust collection is a pricey investment, especially if you don't have the right information, and that's what I want to share with you here. Some of the parts and pieces get really expensive. A fitting like this one could cost $100 on its own. For my shop setup, I needed 8 of these. That's $800 just in fittings. But I want to show you how you can take this expensive investment and turn it into something that can both save you money and make you money if you do this for a living. Whether it's the right machine, ducting, fittings, blast gates, straps, or clamps, you need to know what you need to buy to get the most value out of your purchase. So I wanted to share with you my dust collection journey over the years and how I arrived at the system that I have now and how they're saving and even making me money. When I first got into woodworking, I was shocked at how much money I would need to put into my dust collection system to be able to use some of my larger tooling. As your tools get bigger, your dust collection needs to get bigger too. And that means putting more money into something you don't necessarily want to. We all like getting new tools. I mean, it's kind of part of the woodworking fun. But what's not fun is dumping money into something just to get rid of the dust so that you can use them safely and, in a clean way. Talking about dust collection isn't a sexy conversation because you're dumping money into something just to get rid of the dust. And it's not really the tool part of the equation. It's the cleanup part of the equation. But it is still very important that you have the right machine for your shop. Once I realized that, hey, I'm gonna have to start dumping money into dust collection, I bought my first little unit, and it was one of those little blower units with a bag on the end, and it would work fine for one machine, but it just wasn't enough power to power all the tools I wanted to get and had already gotten for my shop. I only had that unit for like 3 months before I realized this was not enough. So I was on the hunt for an upgraded machine, and I bought another machine that used bags. It was a bag on the bottom to catch all the dust, and then another bag on top to catch all the small particulates. I had that for about a year, and it was fine, but every time the bag got full, which would happen a lot, I'd have to basically disassemble the entire thing, turn the bags inside out and throw the sawdust away, and then clean out it wasn't even a HEPA, it was like just a micron bag or whatever. But I'd have to turn that inside out and blow it. And it was a nightmare because I lived in this suburban environment. My neighbors hated it and I hated it. And it was frankly the worst. It was very similar to this unit back here, except for this unit has an actual HEPA filter on top of it. That one just had the bag. Once I got rid of that machine, I got what I would consider be my first modern dust collection system. And that system had a cyclone separator with a hopper below it that you could release and pull the hopper out and dump all the chips. It was great. It also had a big HEPA filter on it. And I really felt like at the time I had gotten the right machine for my shop. I actually ended up buying another machine just like it, but with more horsepower. The first one was a 1.5 horsepower, and then I got a 3 horsepower unit. Those machines lasted my shop for a long time. I had those for about 3 or 4 years before I ever upgraded. And I waited too long to upgrade. I should have upgraded sooner, but they were what I had. And like I said, it's really hard to justify dumping more money into dust collection. But that is a mistake. If you don't have the right sized machine, you're going to be using more power than you need to. And also, if your hopper is too small, you're going to be emptying that thing all the time. And that was the problem we ran into here. See, I have employees and I have 2 different sides of my building, so I needed 2 separate machines, but we were still filling up those hoppers all the time. When we'd have a big milling session, when we do a big millwork project, we would be emptying the dust collector every 15 minutes. That is bonkers. And that's like a 5 to 10 minute process every single time. Sometimes the HEPA filter would get filled up too, and we'd have to work around that, and it was just a nightmare. We'd have to blow the whole thing out. And these sort of slowdowns and costs can really affect the productivity of a shop. A lot of people watching this probably aren't worried so much about productivity. They're more worried about how to have the most fun in your shop. But the same statement still stands. You want to spend the least amount of time futzing with your dust collector. You want to spend the most amount of time doing actual woodworking. So let's talk about some of these costs. And I'll talk about specifically the ones I was running into here at my shop. I have employees here. Let's say I'm paying them $25 an hour. If I'm paying them $25 an hour, with taxes and insurance, it's closer to a $35 an hour rate to have them do anything. And that takes about 15 minutes. So we're talking about an hour out of the day, every single day of just emptying dust hoppers. At that rate, I'm paying someone $35 a day, $175 a week, $700 a month, and $8,400 a year just to empty dust hoppers. And that's not including blowing out HEPAs and all the other maintenance that comes along with having a dust collection system. So when it came to upgrading my dust collection, I needed to get a system that could take way more or even unlimited capacity with the dust collection bin, and something that was much easier to maintain in the day-to-day operation. And that's how I landed on the system I landed on, which was this Oneida high-back system. When I decided that I wanted to go with Oneida for my dust collection, I had reached out to them and got a hold of their customer service. And the very first thing they did was ask me every single detail about my shop and the tools I have in there. They even wanted to know the port diameters for every single one of my tools and where they're located in my shop. They've clearly designed the dust collection for many shops in the past, and I came out of that conversation with great confidence that they were going to get me set up with the right machine or machines for both of my shops. So it's been about 4 months now since we got both machines set up, and I gotta tell you, I'm really blown away. It's completely changed our workflow and how we approach dust collection in the shop. The whole process is so much more painless now. We can have multiple blast gates open and tools running at the same time. And since I have multiple people working in my shop, that's really imperative. We really need to know that when we're running 2 machines or 3 machines at the same time, that all of the dust is going to get collected or sucked out of the machine. And that's what we get with these machines. So this is my current dust collection system. I actually have 2 of these units. It's very tall. From the ground up, we had to pour a concrete pad. This stand came with the unit. This is how you set it up. It's got adjustable heights to it. I did have to buy this separate. This is a hopper. This is a self-dumping forkable hopper. We use the tractor to remove this and dump it on my property. This is the actual cyclone unit, the motor. This motor is for the airlock, and this keeps the pressure in the cyclone at all times by sealing up this. And there's these 4 flappers in there that are spinning constantly, and it's just dumping sawdust into this bin. So this was what we had to set up out here. It was not incredibly difficult to do, but it isn't easy by yourself. You could not do this by yourself. We did have to assemble the main unit. We left off everything we could. Obviously, we didn't have the ducting on there. We didn't have this lower unit on there. We assembled it as it is up there, and then we lifted up there with the tractor and we put it up on this unit. This machine here comes off of the main workshop. This is our more traditional workshop. We don't have any automated tooling in there. This is where all of our clean sawdust comes in, meaning that we don't cut any sheet goods or ply material on this building. Everything that comes in here is just sawdust from hardwood pieces of wood or softwoods, but no sheet goods. So we don't get any of the formaldehydes or glues or any of the chemicals that go into making plywood. And this machine is the one that's connected to the automated shop where we have the CNCs and the lasers. All the dust that comes into here is what we like to call dirty dust. Now let me explain to you why we separate the clean dust from the dirty dust. There are several great ways to manage all the sawdust. The first option is to just throw it away. And I really don't like that option because sawdust is honestly a pretty good byproduct that can be used for a lot of different things. If you make it available to people, they will come and get it. So if you're not going to throw it away, which I recommend, you can just make a listing on like a local neighborhood app or Facebook Marketplace and people will come and get it. Now let me tell you what I do. We actually just dump it into big piles on the property and we spread it around with my tractor. I'm very fortunate to have property and a tractor, and I know a lot of people watching this won't have that as an option. But it's really great here because I have a whole section of my property that no one goes to where we just dump this stuff and we spread it around, and after a couple of seasons it breaks down and becomes really good mulch. When you're buying a new dust collection system, you want to figure out whether or not you want to have an interior or an exterior dust collection system. Now, prior to this system, I'd always had interior dust collection systems. One of the positives is that you can easily hear or tell when the hopper is full. So let's talk about exterior units. The huge win for having an exterior unit is that it doesn't take up floor space in your shop. But with it being outside, it's sucking all your air conditioning out and blowing it outside. So to fix that, you can put the HEPA inside the shop, and that recirculates your air back into the shop. The other thing to think about if you have an exterior system is that you're gonna have to make penetrations into your wall, one for your intake and one for your return air. And you're gonna have to think about how you seal that up so that you don't get water intrusion during the rainy season. Also, so you don't get like rodents and pests and bugs in through that as well. Another thing about Oneida that I really liked is that they offer design services. You can give them a rough layout of your shop and they will help you with the layout of the ducting and even where the dust collector should be optimally in your shop. Now that isn't a free service, But if you go with their system, they will deduct that cost off the invoice of your whole bill. But if you weren't using their services and you were doing it on your own, that's time and money that you need to factor into your budget. And let's talk about consumables. One of those items, if you don't have a system that can use a giant hopper, is bags. If you don't have an easy way to dump your sawdust on your property like I do, which I assume most people don't, you're going to be using bags. You're going to be going through a lot of those bags, probably too. Another consumable is HEPA filters. As soon as you use them the first time, they start to degrade, and you can blow them out and keep them clean. But over time, eventually, you're going to have to replace the HEPA filter, and that is not cheap. This consumable is more specific to a setup like mine, but my hopper didn't come with my setup. I had to buy that separately. In fact, I had to buy 2 of them, and those were $1,300 a piece. Another cost is the flappers that are inside the auto lock. But based on what I'm told, they should last a very long time. Piping. The piping is a consumable because we often change the layout of the shop in here. Now, sometimes we can reuse some of the piping, but oftentimes it's just faster to just cut down the old piping and reroute it to the new location. And if you think ducting is expensive, wait till you start buying fittings. Some of these fittings are insane. These 8 and 10-inch fittings are like $100 a piece. A piece! Now this is called flex hose or flexible hose. You actually don't want to use this very much. You want to minimize your use of it because if you don't, this will greatly reduce your airflow. The way this is constructed is not ideal for air movement, but it is ideal for flexibility, which is its main advantage. So when you would use that is towards the end of your ducting runs, right at the tool, so that you can move your tool around without affecting the rest of the line. You're also going to need to use self-tapping sheet metal screws. You're going to use a lot of caulk, metal strapping to hold it to the ceiling or walls, and an aluminum tape. I also recommend you get a set of these electric tin snips. They're very cheap, like $40. I'll put a link down below in the description, but they're well worth the money. When you cut down a piece of ducting, you end up with 2 sides that are uncrimped. The new ducting has a crimped side. We cut off the crimped side because we needed to use a short run. But if you need to use the crimped side or make a crimped side, you can grab your crimping tool, and it's very simple. Just add some crimps to it. This will make the diameter a little smaller and make it so it'll fit into another piece of piping. Sometimes it goes smooth, sometimes it doesn't go very smooth, but ultimately you'll be able to make it work and fit in there nicely. Like I said, all of our sawdust gets dropped into a hopper, and then we use the tractor to go drop it somewhere on the property. Unless it's the stuff from the CNC shop, that goes straight to the dumps. But another option you can use, and I think it's one I want to use in the not too distant future, is a conveyor system. I don't have an example of that here because I don't have that setup. That actually sounds like a better setup for my situation than the hopper, because we could have that just dump into a pile somewhere out of the way, and then we could use the loader bucket on the tractor to just take it off to the bottom side of my property. The other thing we could do with a system like that for the CNC shop, where we have the really dirty sawdust, is have it convey right into my dump trailer. Now let's talk about my dump trailer. This is my dump trailer. I recently had to buy this because we just kind of make a lot of trash here. And specifically, we make a lot of offcuts, plywood offcuts, and hardwood offcuts, but we also make a lot of dirty sawdust. And that dirty sawdust goes straight to the dumps. I don't have a better way to reuse that or turn it into some other product. I don't know of one. If there is one, let me know in the comments. But as it is right now, all of our dirty dust and our offcuts and shop trash goes straight to the dumps. There is a lot of information out there about dust collection, and I just wanted to share my story and show you my journey and how I got to the spot where I'm at with my dust collection. There's so many things you need to consider, and there's so many costs that you need to factor into your purchase. So I hope this video was helpful. And if you did like this video and it was helpful for you, I'd really appreciate it if you gave me a like and if you subscribe to the channel. If you liked this video, I have a bunch of other videos on the channel that you'll probably like. I also wanted to give a big thank you to Oneida for partnering up with me on this. They've been a wealth of knowledge and information. They are truly pioneers in the dust collection world, and they are really passionate about it. If you want to learn more about Oneida and the offerings they have, check the link down below in the description. They are fantastic over there. And a huge shout out to my patrons. We have a great community over there. We talk about woodworking and running a business and just our shared love of working with wood and having tools and all this stuff that we get to do. It's so much fun. We have so many great conversations. And if you'd like to check out my Patreon page, that link is also down in the description below.